My name is Kemble Widmer, and I'm a furniture scholar that has concentrated on Salem furniture for the past 30 years. I'd like to introduce my research partner, Joyce King, an 11th generation descendant from Salem and a crackerjack at genealogical research. And we're here at the Peabody Essex Museum in Salem that has been kind enough to gather together the key pieces of Salem's most significant cabinet maker of the mid-18th century, Nathaniel Gould. Before discovering the ledgers of Gould in the Massachusetts Historical Society, we have been aware of him as a cabinet maker in Salem for quite a long period, but there was nothing concrete as to attribution. In fact, furniture was attributed to him originally, was subsequently attributed to Henry Russ, so there was a bit of controversy. He was born in 1734 in what is now Peabody, and unfortunately both his father and mother died when he was about 12 years old. He was, as was done then, he was apprenticed out to a journeyman cabinet maker. His family had been woodworkers, and it looks like he went to Charlestown outside Boston to learn his trade. He came back about 1756, and I'll let Joyce cover it from that point.
When he came to Salem, he rented from a Mrs. Holman for a while until he could save enough money to purchase it was a half of a house he purchased in the middle of Townhouse Square, which is Essex Street and Washington Street now. And he had his shop in the back, as far as we know. Stayed there till about 1773, and we're not sure where he moved to. Right after that, in 1774, the whole corner was set on fire. 5 or 6, 7 houses burnt down. The people who lost their furniture, they came back to Gould and started purchasing for their houses, their new houses.
We've been researching Salem furniture for 30 years. And in 2006, the antique dealer Clarence Prickett and Sons came to us after acquiring a Bombay desk and bookcase with a Boston family history, asking us if we'd be interested in doing genealogy work and trying to determine who made it. It's important to understand that we were pretty sure all along that it was Nathaniel Gould who was responsible for this group of furniture, even though there was controversy. We started going through the desk and bookcase had a Boston history going back to the early 1800s, but we were pretty sure that it had been made in Salem, not Boston. So after some very frustrating work at Mass Archives trying to track desks and bookcases through family trees, we decided we had to concentrate the search on members of the family that lived in Salem between 1750 and 1780, when we thought the piece was made. And it turned out that both the husband and wife of the present owners were both descendant from a common ancestor, John Cabot. And that narrowed the search down. From that point, it was a stroke of luck, and I'll let Joyce talk about how we found the ledgers.
Well, one night I was playing on the computer, and I thought I should Google the name Nathaniel Gould, because we never did that. And when I did, it came up that there were 3 account books at the Mass Historic Society. So I told Ken, well, this might be important, so we might want to check it out. And we went to the Mass Historic Society, and they pulled out the books for us. And we looked, and it looked like it was a general store type of business. But when you looked a little closer, you saw that it was really geared to his furniture making.
Well, the ledgers had been at the Mass Historical Society since 1834 undiscovered. The reason was that they were in the manuscripts of Nathan Dane, a very prominent Beverly lawyer who was involved in land transactions in the early 19th century. And the stroke of luck occurred that Joyce looked up or Googled Nathaniel Gould's name probably only a week or two after the finding aids had been loaded on the website. And if we had looked a week before they were loaded, we might not be sitting here today with the ledgers. And it took about 4 years of going through and documenting every transaction in the ledgers. There are more than 3,000 of them. After the discovery was made, our major concern was that we have time to really analyze the ledgers. We were under some pressure to release the results of the discovery right away, which we resisted until we could do our research. And what we have done is tried to document every single person that Gould sold to, when he sold the furniture, what type it was, and in going through the ledgers, we've been able to sort out what specific chairs or pieces of furniture were sold. The most satisfying part of the project from Joyce and my standpoint is that we've been able to document at least 10 pieces of furniture to the specific family and the date they were made and how much the people paid, what the wood was, and most of these pieces are in museums and they've never been able to know this information before. Salem was noted for its fine furniture and has been over a 200-year period, starting with the very earliest colonial time and extending right through the federal period. Gould specifically has attributes not seen on many other Salem cabinet makers. First thing we always look for was this very, very fine selection of the best mahogany. Gould controlled the mahogany trades coming into Salem, and he had established his business position very early when he first got here. He used families' inherited funds to sell property and to start his business, and he quickly was exporting and running a very successful barter trade on wood and sugar from the West Indies, selling it to other cabinet makers in Salem, and he reserved the best wood for his own use. Here we can see on his iconic Bombay desk and bookcase. He probably only made 2 or 3 of these. This is the one sold to the firm of Francis and Joseph Cabot that initiated the whole research project. You can see the figuring of the mahogany is well selected on the cupboard doors at the top. It duplicates draperies. And the lid, we can see it later on another lid, but the lid has a swirled mahogany grain that echoes the swag on drapery. That piece of wood on the lid was made in 1765, and he used the same piece of wood to make the desk and bookcase at the Met 10 years later. There are 4 of these known today. All the lids were made from this very special Fletcham mahogany. Now, Gould's characteristics, other than the choice of wood, he has a very fine balance of proportion. His ball and claw feet are all the same on the large case pieces. You have an extended knee return. You have a drop shell in the center. Whether it's Bombay or block front, his interior of his desk is magnificent. One thing that he usually did, we can tell what is his early work as opposed to his later work. Notice on this piece that the fans on the side drawers on the interior are very small in relationship to the front of the drawer. As he makes pieces later, we'll see on the desk that fan becomes larger and it's more in proportion. When he made a Bombay desk, he usually had the prospect door was a shell carving not a tombstone as on this desk and bookcase. This is the tip-off that prospect door is not original. If we go higher on the piece, Gould usually had two forms of finials. He had corkscrew finials on the side, or he could have corkscrew finials in all three positions. If he only used two corkscrew finials, the usual finial he used in the center was, as on this piece, a ball, a staple, an urn, all mounted on the bell form. And he had carved rosettes in the upper portion of the tympanum, and you have a three-dimensional shell carving looking down on the observer that is applied to the front but not carved into it. It's a separate piece. We have located approximately 50 pieces made by Gould or attributed to him. Now the question asks, he made over 100 desks for domestic use, over 1,100 chairs. That number today of surviving desks is probably no more than 10, and chairs no more than 20 or 30. Generally, only 7% of built furniture from this period has survived that we can tell. There will be more of the very large case pieces like a desk and bookcase surviving. For instance, 4 desk and bookcases survived from a shop and he only made 14 of them. But the smaller the piece was and the more subjected to damage, the less number of survivors. One additional point I should make, this chest on chest and many of the other items, including the block front desk and bookcase at the Met, were all part of wedding orders. Betsy Garrett, my wife, has done extensive work, and with Joyce, we discovered that any time we had a large order of furniture, we immediately started searching for when the person was married. The furniture was usually given by the bride's family, so you had to go to her family name, and when we did that, we had about an 8% chance we were going to have a specific date and reason for the furniture purchase tied to weddings. This concludes our brief discussion of Nathaniel Gould and some of his furniture. The exhibition at the Peabody Essex Museum closes on March 29th, and we encourage everybody to try and see these pieces because half of them are in private collections and you'll probably never see them again. If anybody is interested in further detail, I would encourage you to get a copy of In Plain Sight, Discovering the Furniture of Nathaniel Gould, where we have listed every single transaction that Gould made for furniture in the ledgers. And we tried to track the history and discuss his construction details thoroughly in that book. Thank you very much, and get to see the exhibit.